Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
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 We still have a few more people trickling in, but we'll get started. It'll take probably about 5 to 10 minutes for us to do introductions and whatnot. My name is Dayna Young. I'm a freelance music marketer. I work with clients including Hayes Carl, The Devil Makes Three, William Clark Green, Jesse Fury. I work directly with record labels, with artist management, and sometimes with music brands as well. I reached out to Carolyn Ortiz, who is one of our co-hosts today. I reached out to Carolyn probably about 4 or 5 months ago now and asked if it would be possible to host this webinar because as a freelance music marketer, something that I feel like I missed the opportunity to do is learn collaboratively from others in environments where we can come together. Especially where I'm based. I'm not based in a capital city, so I don't really get a chance to meet with others directly as often as I would like. And so for me, building a sense of community and allowing a platform for marketers to come together and collaborate and share information felt like something that I'd really value. And from the attendance numbers that are growing regularly, it seems like others value it too. So, a little bit about today. We'll do the formal introductions, and then Carolyn, Ellen, and I will have an informal conversation about how to find your superfans and keep their attention. Then we'll pivot into a kind of a tool sharing section where we want to hear from you. What are the tools that you're using to engage your fans, to keep their attention? What's working, what's not? What have you come across recently? That kind of thing. And then we'll allow for some Q&A with Ellen at the end of the webinar. So to get us started, a little bit about Carolyn. Since 2009, Carolyn has built a diverse music career, balancing freelance work in publicity, brand partnerships, and live event curation with business development roles at companies including Chanel, Viacom, and Universal Music Group. In 2011, she founded, or co-founded, sorry, Big Ass Kids, evolving it from a record label into a full-scale music ecosystem. Recently, she launched the B.A.K Play.Ground, a collaborative platform for music professionals, and the B.A.K Sandbox, a 501(c)(3) initiative supporting industry workers impacted by layoffs.
Thank you so much, Dana. I'm excited to be here. These chats are always so much fun and informative, and Ellen is going to be such an incredible guest.
Ellen is going to be a great guest. A little bit about Ellen Mangan. Sorry, Ellen, did I pronounce your surname wrong? I feel like I should know that.
No, that was correct. Thank
Good,
you.
perfect. Ellen is a New York City-based music marketing professional with experience at Columbia Records, Arista Records, PledgeMusic, and Verify Media. Her career highlights include leading JP Saxe's Grammy-nominated campaign, marketing for multi-platinum and chart-topping albums, organizing a metadata summit in Paris, alongside performing as a harpist with the Jackson Heights Orchestra, and mentoring through various industry organizations. When we reached out to Ellen to be part of this webinar series, the topic that she immediately gravitated towards was how to find your superfans and keep their attention. So let's get stuck in. To get us started, Ellen, let's start with the obvious question. What is a superfan?
Yeah, so first off, thank you so much. It's so nice to be on here, and such an honor to be asked. Yeah, so okay, when you think of super fans, because it's been such a buzzword, and it's been a buzzword for a very long time, but the industry seems hyper fixated on it now. The definition that I've seen thrown out there is from Luminate. They say it's a group of listeners who engage with the artist and their content in 5+ different ways. I think we can all agree a super fan is one who is likely to not only stream your music, but go to whatever platform you're putting yourself out there on. There's someone that comments on everything. There's someone that hopes to receive news first about you and share it with their friends. There's someone that will continue to buy all sorts of different merch. It's just a fan who's extremely engaged in your music.
I think I became a Chapel Rowan superfan this year and I didn't see it coming.
We all did. I think we all did. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, Hot to Go is my number one song on my That's probably my daughter's fault, but I really enjoy it. But I didn't realize as super fan, the definition of it was 5 different touch points. And when you broke that down, that really makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I think we think of super fans only as people who will monetize, from buying merch or showing up. But all of those other touch points, engaging with your content, subscribing to your newsletter, those all make a difference for artists. Yeah. So I guess, Ellen, why is the music industry suddenly hyper fixated on super fandom?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of articles lately, and the big buzzword just in the past year is super fan. But we've all known for years and years, and if not decades, that super fans are out there and exist. But I think the industry is hyper fixated for the profit. They obviously everyone out there is just looking for more and more ways that they can up their ROI. And specifically, there's been some studies that are, what you call them, studies like the Goldman Sachs review came out and said that it's a $4 billion untapped industry. And when you see things like that, you then see all sorts of companies and organizations jump on and go, oh my God, how can we get in on this? I think it's the realization that, you're seeing fans who will, since they're no longer the CD sales and the vinyl sales that are the meat and the potatoes, and it's all gone to streaming, it's all a lot of companies going, how do we get a piece of the pie that's coming in from different merch deals, different, like if you have a super fan, you are so much more likely to spend a significant amount of money on an artist within a year. So it's just all about converting those super fans. And you see a lot of companies like Warner has backed a bunch of super fan platforms. A lot of companies are trying to find the super fan platform and are injecting a lot of money into that. Yeah, it was the specific line is from Goldman Sachs is that it could be a $4 billion injection in the music industry by 2030, which is pretty significant. I know that like Lucian Grange, he's spoke now about just really trying to engage in the super fan experience and products. You have like Spotify hinting at super fan clubs. You have it's just pretty much every CEO out there now has some kind of calling card, I think, for super fandom and the want to get into that business.
That really makes me wonder, out of the $4 billion, right, that Goldman Sachs is predicting, I guess a two-part question. Where is that coming from? Is it mostly coming from touring, right? Like, what is the breakdown of that 4 billion, and how do artists get a piece of it? So like companies and CEOs want this $4 billion, but like how do the artists get 4 billion? Right? Like, is most of that going to artists, or is it revenue from companies generating income?
Yeah, I wish I had the breakdown of that number.
Mhm.
But I think that the reason everyone's really trying to jump on it is that artists are having success with super fandom. And so some just real life experience I've had with it and specific artists was my time with PledgeMusic. So PledgeMusic was it was kind of the music version of Kickstarter, and it was considered a super fan marketplace. And it's where artists could sell a whole collection of merch, items, experiences, and it was all aimed towards the super fan. And PledgeMusic as a company, unfortunately, didn't work in the long run. That's could be a whole nother webinar. But the idea was really incredible. And you found artists that would know they want to record an album, put up the album for sale, knowing that it hasn't even been recorded yet. A fan would come in and purchase that album that they're not going to get for a year, and then suddenly be invested in on the journey with the recording process through this site, you could send updates to your fans. And so they had a look into the full process. And then along the way, make all sorts of different offers. And what we found again and again is that the same fans would come in, purchase the signed vinyl, purchase the signed CDs, purchase the handwritten lyric sheets, purchase a hike with the artist. They would purchase personal concerts, house concerts, and it would be what was really interesting from my side working there was you'd also find the same people that would get in on one artist's store would get in on multiple artist stores. So I think that super fandom, it's kind of like if you have it in you to be a super fan, you can be a super fan for many artists. And to me, that was a way that an artist so directly found their super fandom and then was able to make that profit themselves. And so now this feels just like years later that it's just industry wide wanting to capitalize on this kind of, community that an artist can foster.
Yeah, and community is such a key word. I think super fan platforms like or even Patreon has really, I think, revamped their approach to crowdfunding by focusing on community building, allows artists to monetize directly, right? And takes like a transaction fee or, kind of a service fee, but it doesn't feel like it's over the top. It feels very manageable, and the artist gets the bulk of the money from the super fans. And I hope it kind of remains that way. Every time I hear, CEOs getting involved, I always feel like that revenue is now not going to the artists in bulk, and they have to share it. So I hope that the integrity of the super fan revenue really does stay with the artist.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think in terms of just an artist staying close to that profit, it is a big commitment for the artist to be able to then build that community, foster that community. But it's kind of like an artist can and should continue to see those profits. It just takes that time and energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When we talk about artists who are creating super fandoms, someone that immediately comes to mind for me and probably many others is Taylor Swift. Let's take a look at Taylor and maybe like what are some of the ways in which she's fostered a space where fans can become super fans?
Oh my God, yeah. And this isn't, I think right out of the gate, I think she was always so warm and grateful and engaged with her fans. And I think honestly, like a kind of a master's should be written, and probably is. I think there are like courses in Harvard about just what she's done. But I think it all started and stemmed, and I'm not a Taylor Swift super fan, so I wasn't in there from the jump, but I've just always been a fan from afar. So I'd love to hear from her super fans, but I think that she just really fostered that environment from day one. And that's also what I see working with other artists now. It's artists that come in and respond to comments, jump in, like have IG lives, communicate, like really let their guard down and allow a fan to have the same kind of emotional experience that they had, that they put into their music, and kind of finding those connections leads to such a more meaningful relationship. And I think she was just a true genius in that approach, her and her team.
Yeah, she's also created a lot or curated a lot of fan experiences from the get-go. You said she was really engaged and from what I can make out, and again, I'm also not a super fan, but I love the way that she engages with her fans and the community that she's built. And so I've looked into things a little bit. From very early on, she would host listening parties with fans at her house. She'd bake them cookies. She would, send them gifts on their birthdays or holidays or anniversaries. Or like she shows that she notices them.
Oh
which I
yeah,
think
she
is
knows
really
the
cool.
names of her super fans.
Didn't she
Yeah.
go to a
Artists should know
prom?
the name, you know?
Didn't she go to a prom with someone? I
Think
think
so.
Oh,
I don't know, maybe I got that wrong. But I think like you said, Dayna, you hit it on the head. Like, she shows up, she knows them. She makes them feel seen. And I feel like when you make people feel seen and appreciated, like they'll appreciate you back. And that's part of artist development, right? I think a lot of artists miss that now because they're so focused on creating content and just kind of being engaging versus making their artists feel seen. Um,
yeah. And I can give an example that I was close with is I worked Louis Tomlinson's album, and his fans, the One Direction super fans, has to be my favorite super fandom in the history of super fans. They're absolutely amazing. So his fans, were fans of One Direction, now feel so vested in making every member of One Direction successful. And um, it's just absolutely amazing how they support. So when I was working Louis' album, I was in touch with the top fan of his fan community, who is an amazing woman in Paris. And she and the other fans would get together and create so much hype completely on their own outside of it. And then as much as I could, I'd try to, support and fan those flames as much as I could. On their own, his fandom built a website that would track every radio station and every time a radio station would play one of Louis' songs. And if they were not playing the songs, they would have all of the tools ready to go to send out to fans so that fans would reach out to each station individually requesting for Louis' song to be played. They made care packages like M&Ms with Louis' face on them, sent them to all the stations across the country. They would do streaming parties, like very focused. Okay, this is going to be our streaming day. There was one day that they went, we're going to make him number one on iTunes today. Like, we want him to be number one.
um,
They banded together and purchased a billboard in Times Square. Like, these fans were dedicated. And then, I was in touch, the whole way around so that Louis always knew what they were up to. He could engage. And then when the album came out, we had some album signing parties, and Louis showed up and connected with each one of those fans. He would remember the ones, from time and time again. Like he really gave it back to them in such a meaningful way. And that just went so far. And I also found where the One Direction fan base, like you could, with newer artists, and an example of kind of tapping into that fandom as a new artist is when I worked with JP Saxe. He started as his fan club home team, and he was very engaged with his fans just from day one and would constantly be communicating with them. And then when we released If the World Was Ending, he did it with Julia Michaels. Julia Michaels did a track with Niall. The One Direction fans that then came on with Niall, then transferred to Julia, then transferred to JP. And those super fans that we saw very engaged and helping build up this home team community, they were originally One Direction fans. Like, it's amazing how you could almost tie it all back, and that it's really fascinating.
you see that in like artist collectives, right? Where
Yeah.
you have one artist kind of the star, but the artists around them kind of also get those super fans to engage in their music as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess our next question, this goes right into it, is how can artists nowadays foster a space where fans can become super fans?
Yeah, so I really, it's the being engaged, it's really and sincerely engaged. I think that fans want authenticity these days and can see through performative steps very easily. There are now so many platforms out there where you can pursue the super fandom and see where your community ends up living. I think in terms of a newer artist, I always say start simple. And even when you're thinking like a new successful artist, you still want to start simple and, like find where your community is thriving. So is it Reddit? Are you going to put your focus in on Reddit? And you should check all these boxes, but it's so easy for an artist to become overwhelmed. And I think the very base minimum step is just across socials, respond to comments, be engaged, start there. And then you can try seeing if you like, where can you speak to them directly? Discord seems to be working for a lot of artists and fans. I think you have to be at a certain level to have a successful Discord. Like in order to bring your fans to a whole new platform, you already had to have had that relationship fostered. And it's not like you're going to start a Discord and then this is how you're going to build your entire community. So I think it's using like the obvious tools to begin with and then opening it up. And at the end of the day, I think your newsletter is kind of your number one tool for fostering that relationship. Your newsletter continues to be like the most significant way to get the most information directly from you as an artist to a fan. And a lot of times there was a period where I would see the newsletter completely ignored. And I think that was a big mistake. It was similarly like there was a big period where labels were in complete ownership of the newsletter versus artists. And that doesn't bode well for the artist long term. Like you as an artist want to have ownership over your mailing list.
Yeah, and how important is in real life experiences for building super fandom?
Say that again, inner life?
In real life.
Oh,
IRL.
in real life. Oh my God. Yeah, that feels like there's too much online. I think in real life is extremely important. It's kind of like for fans that spend, like you see the most amount of money being spent on tours. And what fans will pay for a ticket price right now, which I think is also just ridiculous and wrong about just how expensive. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I think if you're not a touring artist, you're not like out there with your fans. Like you need to be playing shows and then be at the merch table after. Like that's where you're really going to be converting fans to super fandom. It's if a fan has an in real life experience with you, they feel so connected to you. And if they can, it just makes them feel good for a very long time. And they'll want to be so much more involved. So I think in real life experience is
Yeah.
completely vital. And
Yeah.
just like, it's on release day, like have signings, old school, traditional, like there's reasons why it works so well,
Yeah, I miss like you go to the mall and see artists signing posters at the mall. But nowadays like we see artists doing bike rides with their communities, going on hikes with their communities, like you said. Like you can take it off the stage too, because I know touring, booking shows, especially for new artists, it's difficult, right? And it can get expensive. So how to engage fans outside of a stage, right? Or outside of social media could be things like a book club.
Mhm.
How do you feel about kind of fostering those really kind of niche community moments? Do you find them to be kind of turnkey? Do you think that they're really effective?
I think they're incredibly effective. And I think that the part of community that you're missing, if you don't try to create those moments, is the fan to fan interaction.
Mm.
Like, you know, why am I blanking on her name? Oh my gosh, I love her. but why is her name? She just, what comes by Margot Robbie, and I know that's not correct. She just did she only sold tickets at the box office.
I know who you mean now too, and I've gone blank. Maggie Rogers.
Maggie Rogers.
Yeah.
And so what's really cool about like that experience is all those fans in line getting to know each other. I think at least I'm old enough that when I was in high school, when I went to wait in line at 6 a.m. for the Strokes show and tickets were being given out at 11, like you met fans in line that you then saw at the show that night. And it was like, oh my God, we know each other now. Like it's the fan to fan interaction is, I think, as important as the artist to fan interaction. So when you're thinking both in real life and in your online campaigns, think of like, okay, how are my fans able to interact with each other?
That's such an important point. I think thinking about that as like, B.A.K, we put on experiential moments sometimes for artists or around our releases. And we always think about how to make experiences feel authentic to an artist. But you also have to think about the community that your artists are fostering together. So if this community of people love a certain thing that might not just be your music, you want to keep that in mind. Like what is the community nature, of your fan base, fan to fan? What do they talk about? What do they enjoy? I love that perspective. I think it really adds so much opportunity on a marketing level to think about what's the fan to fan experience. What moments can you give them to engage in?
Yeah, an example that comes to mind is I worked with Hozier back at Columbia, and he's having that great success now. And he's just like amazing, amazing artist. What's authentic to him is he started talking about beekeeping because he really loves beekeeping on stage and was thinking, the people wouldn't like this. Well, now if you look in his comments, there's all sorts of fans talking to each other about beekeeping. So it's just, you think of like, and that wasn't any kind of intentional marketing, I think. But it's just kind of being authentic and giving your fans something to talk about, giving them something to, an experience. I like another experience, an example I love from this year was Charlie XCX's remix album release. And she did that pop-up that was at Storm King. And my experience just watching as a fan was seeing the TikTok of the guy that single went to Storm King, was hoping to get in, and you see like his initial posts are just being nervous and, oh, I hope I can get in. I hope I can get in. And then you see a video a few hours later, oh, he met some people in line. And then another video later, oh, him and these guys, like they're all friends now. And you see the joy in his face and they're all now in it together. And to me as a fan, like I then got the experience of the in-person experience. So it's like there's so many layers of it to consider now as a marketer of how it's about just making everything as accessible as possible.
I love that. Dayna, do you want to add anything to that before we move on to the next question?
What I've noticed is in terms of keeping your fan engagement, keeping the attention of your fans is be engaged, notice and recognize your fans, create fan engagement opportunities, both artist to fan and fan to fans. And of course, don't forget in real life. If we missed anything.
No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
All those things are so important. I love that.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the value, I guess the value cost difference, right? What does it cost to gain a new fan? What are the resources that might be involved, the actual like cost of acquisition, things like that, versus the cost of retaining a superfan? I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
I really, for like hard costs, I really think the biggest one to consider is time. It's just, it is for building all of this and putting yourself into it. Like it takes a lot of time as an artist to be that engaged. And so depending on where you are in your journey, it's going like, how can I reallocate some of this engagement to my team? What is it that the artist needs to be completely involved in, like what truly needs to be done by the artist versus what can be done by the team. Because it's, back to the PledgeMusic storefronts, and this would be artists of all sizes. It'd be like, okay, how many booklets are you willing to sign? How many handwritten lyric sheets are you willing to put out? If you're gonna put hike with fans up, how many are you willing to do? How many, people would, and this was pre-Cameo days, it'd be like, a voice message or a video message, it's singing happy birthday. Like, how many of those videos are you willing to put in? How many IG lives are you willing to do? How, carving out that time, I think, is the biggest cost, because the engagement is like, you do need to be engaged for those super fans. And so that to me is everything. It's like it's spending money on marketing dollars and ads, and like, that's not going to be the thing that converts a super fan. It's going to be the artist speaking to that fan.
On the point of time, we hear often how burnt out artists are engaging all the time on social and creating content, and there's this just content burnout. So
Yeah.
is there a way to turn it on for a while, right? I see a lot of artists turn it on, invest time, invest engagement around releases, right? A single release, an album release. They're turned on, they're online, they're responding. And then when the album cycle turns off, you don't hear from them, or it's just kind of very generic, once in a while posts. How important is it to remain consistent? Do artists have to push through? Is there a lot of opportunity for content burnout, or do you have to keep going in order to maintain super fans?
I mean, my experience with artists is that you absolutely need time on, time off. It's, a very fine line to then, an artist feeling like they're a content creator. And I think it also just really depends on the size of an artist, or like where you're at in your career. If you have already built a fan base, have these engaged super fans, you can go away for a while and come back and find that your fans are as engaged as they were before. But I think a lot of new and developing artists just feel like they have to be 100% engaged every single day on every single platform. And to me, that's the quickest way to burn out. And so for new and developing artists, I think it's so much more about picking your favorite path. So like, what social platform do you enjoy the most being on, that it won't feel so much like work, and just be focused on that. And at the end of the day, if something works in one platform, it's like kind of then being able to lean in and really amplify what works. So if you're on one platform, you're constantly kind of just testing, testing, testing. And if you see something really raise your hands, well, then maybe put more time and energy in expanding those out to all the different platforms, and just trying to, gain fans wherever you can from something that you see is working. But I think it just is too much to ask an artist to be 100% on every platform that is out there every single day, when things aren't necessarily connecting just yet. So I just think like that time management and self-preservation is extremely important. And I think something that we haven't spoken about yet, but it's very important to be mindful of, is it's a fine line between when fans then feel like, where fans could become stalkers, and like a fine line to cross over into, oh, this is too much access. And so that's also something that you need to be very mindful of just making sure, it's being being as present as possible, but also just making sure you're protecting yourself. And I think that's truly protecting yourself from harm. And then it's also protecting your mental health and protecting, like, you can't be obsessed with comments that aren't serving you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Fans can go a little cray cray.
Yeah.
And we kind of incite the cray cray a little bit, right? Like by offering access, by communicating, by, knowing people's names and calling them out and giving them that feeling. We want to do that. But then again, that self-preservation is so important. So it is a line. I think it's one that artists that are developed learn over time.
Yeah. And I also want to throw out there, like, it's also a fine line between taking advantage of a fan. Just because they will purchase doesn't necessarily mean you should, like, you don't want to take, like, I think a good example that has then gotten some critique on it is when we talk Taylor Swift, it's the decision to make a zillion different versions of the same thing. And if you're a fan who's a completist, all of a sudden you have to purchase every single one. And fans can rightfully get annoyed at that. So it's like you want to make sure what you're offering isn't taking advantage. And I just think that's the responsible, like, that's to be good marketers is to be responsible for both your artist and their fan base. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But I think that's just, it's depending on who you're working for, they're going to try to just squeeze every
Yeah.
possible ounce out.
And super fans make up like what, 1%? Or do you know off the top of your head how, like, what is that percentage number that makes up super fans in an artist fan base?
There,
I feel like I did find some kind of percentage. Let me see if I
there was a
wrote it
stat at
down.
one point that like your top one, you want 100 super fans to get you started,
Mm.
which I think is interesting. Back to the point that you just made, I want to play devil's advocate. Is she being irresponsible, or is she creating opportunities for super fans to buy the things that she knows they're going to want to buy?
So I think it's a very fine line. Like, I forget what product was announced, but there was a lot of backlash to it. And I think because there already had been so many versions, and
Mhm.
it was very much kind of clearly more of a label push. And I also don't want, the label's doing an amazing, amazing job with her, clearly. So I don't want to speak ill of anything, but it's just like, it's there, you might get to a point where, okay, you're going to make this enough, and then people are going to be upset about it. And I wish I could pull up what that specific item was.
I can't think of another artist where you could have the same offering that she does and it sell in the way that it does. Or at least the impression I get is that it sells well.
Well, I think it's yes for that, in terms of also because that taps into, like, it's both super fans and general fans, like just people wanting everything. But the completist mindset, like I saw this a lot at Pledge, it'd be with the audiophiles who just want every version that is available from an artist. And so that would be people trying to get, a test pressing, try to get the first press of a record, the second press of a record. And it was from that mindset that I think this game of, oh, right, if we change the color, then people will want to buy multiple colors. And I think Taylor Swift, to her credit, does a great job of, it does seem like, like the art is so different, like it truly is a new product in a different packaged, the same product packaged in a very different way.
Mhm.
But I think you'll see, like, it can just be a maneuver just to get as many of the same thing purchased as many times as possible. And really, oftentimes, at least my experience at a label, it's creating all those different versions to then try to get that first week chart number high as possible.
We
Yeah.
also, there's collectors, people who
Yeah.
value the resale and that they're going to get from it eventually down the line. So we can't discredit that group of people too. Like there's a lot of money in resale, vintage.
Yeah. No,
So
absolutely.
it's like also a longer term investment for them as well. But for the last I guess 18 minutes, I want to talk about tools, right? Like what are some superfan tools, platforms that you have found to be very effective? And in those tools, like different ways in which people can pivot fans into superfans. And then from there, there's some questions in the chat that hopefully we'll have some time to get to.
Just in terms of this next part of the conversation too, anyone who wants to participate, just use the Zoom app to raise your hand and we'll call upon you. We'd love to hear from everybody. So, please feel free to speak up and be part of this dialogue. Ellen, over to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many different platforms now that are out there. Discord, of course, Session is another. Even I would love to know if anyone on here has used Even and what their
Yeah.
experience has been like with that. I'd be so curious about that.
I can talk about
And
Even if you want me to get into it
oh
now.
yeah, please.
Yeah, so we're actually preferred partners. So B.A.K and Even have a partnership. So just want to put that out there. But outside of the partnership, I truly am a super fan of Even. The team over there, Mag, Selena, Chris, like are amazing human beings. They are truly artist friendly. They care about the artist and they care about the fans. So with the love that they have, they poured it into Even, which makes it so special. They have a way of being able to connect with fans and monetize really well. For artists are making, I think, $10 a single, like per on average, right? Per fan that purchases on Even. So they're able to make a lot of money, a good amount of money, more than they would if they just did a streaming release. But so pre-DSP release, you can put your music and your merch, this exclusive stuff out on Even. Your super fans have a community platform to engage around, and the artist is really able to monetize at a high value. And the Even team will just help promote it. They'll help push it. They'll tell you if, hey, I think this isn't going to work. So they don't let you waste money, right? They'll really get involved in the development of your super fan opportunities, which to me is so special and cool too. So I highly recommend Even.
I checked out a platform yesterday, Gigaverse. Um, I'm not too sure like how new it is or whether or not they were just going through some redevelopment. It was interesting. I think that the impression that I got of it, and I'm maybe right or wrong because I kind of only hopped in for 5 to 10 minutes just to take a quick look, was live streams, community live streams for artists. So very similar to a TikTok live, but in a private space. So the artists were all part of the broadcast. They were chatting. They had a moderator. Very similar to this webinar today in terms of like how it functioned. That was really interesting because I think that there is definitely like opportunities with something like that. But there's also then the premise or the question of like, well, you can kind of do most of that on TikTok Live or similar. Why would you take fans out of a place where they already are to somewhere new that they might not be signed up for and so forth?
Yeah, my experience, it definitely takes an artist of a certain size to then be testing out a new platform. And I think it'll be like the mechanics of that platform that'll make it worth it, you know? All these all these companies that are coming together, it's like, what is that special sauce that will be so beneficial on top of having done it for many of these other, you know, sites. And I think so many of those, it's like when you have the super fan, like true super fans and you want to give them something special, that's definitely when you take it off somewhere else, because those are the fans that will be engaged, will go off here, and then it can stay special and unique just for them versus an IG Live, TikTok Live, where anyone can jump in on that. And I think we have a question from Teresa.
Now we have Teresa here.
Hey guys, my name's Teresa. I run a marketing agency here in Chicago, and I have some experience with the whole super fan thing. I also manage G Herbo, whose fandom is kind of crazy when it comes to super fans. So, something that we do in our camp is we have a G Herbo app where everything super fan related to Herb is posted and goes funnels through this app. The crazy thing about this app is that it's allowed us to like really pinpoint our data of who the fans are, right? So we've been able to segment our fans into like the top tier, like 1% fans, the 10% fans, or whatever. We also like have location data on them where we can geo-target them, and we can like literally zoom into the block where they were sitting when they downloaded the app. The other thing is like we super serve the app with like content and all types of stuff so that the fans are there and like engaged there. Everything that we sell for Herb is tied to this app. So most of our merch sales, most of our pre-saves, most of our streams are all generated through the app. The app also went viral because his life is wild and wild things happen. So it went viral on Reddit. It also went viral on Instagram, probably in like the month of October, and it skyrocketed our usage, and we were like the number 25 most downloaded app in the country
Wow.
across all apps, not just entertainment, which was literally insane. So,
That's
see, now
amazing.
yeah, and this is kind of like this is maybe like 4 months or so that I've been like really tied into the app and like really pushing content and really trying to um like really trying to super serve that area of our business, and it's really working. So that's kind of like where I'm waving the flag of, if you don't have an artist app and you're even a mid-tier artist, like that's where you should be funneling all of your fans versus funneling your fans to other entities where you don't have that data, right? Because like on the app, we have every single piece of data from every single one of these people. And like now we're about to create, well, mum's the word, but we're about to roll out a project on the app that will like we can tier who gets it based on what amount. Like we can make it free, we can make it not free. Like there's all types of stuff that we're doing like within this platform. Something else that I've started to do recently that's been super effective, because again, like Herb's an easy case study because it's already there, right? But is fan accounts. So he has like 3 or 4 fan accounts that are just like naturally created on Instagram that have hundreds of thousands of followers. We've actually brought on one of the people that runs one of the fan accounts onto the team. But aside from that, we also super serve all the fan accounts with exclusive content. So I have relationships with all of those fan accounts. We talk every single day. And I'm sending like any throwaway images that we're not using for our own socials. I toss them over to the fan accounts, and then they go crazy with them from a content perspective. And like I said, I've now onboarded one of the fans, and her entire role on my team is making sure that the things that we're doing are copacetic with the fans, right? So like I know earlier we were talking about the Taylor Swift thing where there's like a fine line of like how many items you can sell where the fans are going to get irritated and all that stuff. Like that's a conversation we have weekly with her, where we're like, hey, would the fans align with this? Would the fans be happy about this? Like, what about this? Do the fans want this? Do you engage with the email list? Where do you engage with stuff with Herb? So it's like literally like my own personal case study of like what the fans absolutely want. And so we gear everything around that, especially because with him, we're in a moment of really galvanizing the core fans again, so that we can have a huge 2025. So that's been like our entire focus for the last 3 months. But if anybody wants any info on the like how to get an app set up for your artists or anything, hit me up. I can get you connected to the company that we use. I'll throw my email in the chat.
So just to
Yeah,
clarify,
that's
you guys
wonderful.
built that app yourselves, like through a third party partner?
Yeah, so it's a third-party
It's really
partner
cool.
called My Seat. So yeah, and it's really they're kind of just like whatever you want to do. They have apps across all different sectors. It's not just music, right? So it they can really tailor it to like how you want to exist within the app space, right? And so even for Herb, right, he has a nonprofit called Swerving Through Stress that I run as well. And so now we're actually developing in the next 3 to 5 years a telehealth app for Swerving Through Stress that'll offer subsidized mental health services. And we're going to tailor that within the app as well. So that's going to be a whole different tab at the bottom where you sign in and you can get therapy within this app. So yeah, it's all I can yeah, my sweet Carolyn. I'll send you I'll drop my email in, and if anybody wants to, shoot me a note, I can connect you with them.
Oh, that's
That sounds really
incredible. Congratulations on that.
Yeah,
yeah.
this is so huge.
And
Um,
the point that you bring up about empowering fans and hiring fans, like that's such a great point to make. Like it that you need to be in touch with all of these fan groups and fan accounts. And it's also a way that you can kind of be promoting things that maybe an artist doesn't want living on their socials. Or if you're trying to keep
Exactly.
very specific aesthetic with socials, that you can seed it out um through these fandoms. And in terms of like hiring fans like that, it's such a great move. I've seen a lot of artists make. Remember, even back in the day, Barbra Streisand's like her entire head of digital everything was from a fan club. And he was just her number one fan. And she brought him on, and he's been working with her for decades now.
it's amazing.
Like it's they know so much more than you do at times. It's amazing.
It sounds like the artists who are finding the most success with super fans are the ones who are really considering the fans in their marketing plans. How many times have we sat through marketing plans and brainstorm meetings where we're talking about the artist and being authentic to the artist and what kind of content, the artist can make, but then how many times have we heard, taking into consideration what the fans are and the demographics of their day-to-day life and how to bring them into the marketing plan like Teresa did. That's incredible. And it sounds like almost a cheat code for like really engaging and building a super fan audience is start with your fans, right? And include them in the marketing.
Yeah, you really want to consider what the experience is from the fan's perspective.
Mhm.
And it's the most important perspective there is, I think.
Yeah. I saw that Ariel had a question.
Hey everyone, I'm Ariel, and for 28 freaking years, I've been running a marketing and PR firm for independent artists. And like you said, Ellen, the concept of super fans is so not new. And it's interesting that now it seems everything old is new again. That being said, the level of artists that I work with tends to be an older person that's terrified of TikTok. Like that's not even a possibility. And we spend a lot of time doing very, very foundational work, like who is your fan, identifying what it looks like. Any of you have a tool that you like for less developed artists? Like we know all about how to run very active communities, but it's getting that first 10 fans. Like, how do you capture them? We're thinking like maybe we should just put everyone on a WhatsApp group. Like, how in the heck, without spending a lot of money or doing anything like giving a baby a Ferrari, do we help an artist that's in incredibly early days understand the value? And I'm just looking for a tool that is capable of helping an artist in early stages that doesn't cost a lot of money and is easy to use.
Very early stages, I really like close friends on IG, of just making a close friends circle and putting out stuff that's just going to them. But if it is an older fan, if it's an older fan, older audience, newsletter. I really think newsletter is kind of the answer there. And it's like, yeah, I don't think you have to spend any money. It's true. Like I think WhatsApp and seeing if people do end up talking to each other within WhatsApp, like that's an easy, free way to test it out. Um, I don't think I would spend any money, it's because you want to see if they will engage with each other, um, first and foremost.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have something to add there as well. Something that I think is often really overlooked, especially by emerging artists, is their search presence. There's definitely things that you can do to create a really easy search presence for yourself. Make sure that you're on all the major platforms. Build your website in Squarespace or similar. Squarespace has a level of schema markup that then builds out your social profile, your search profile and presence a little bit easier. I think that if you want to build a fan base, be easily discoverable
Yeah.
on all
We
platforms
we
within the Google ecosystem.
we do all of that foundational work for the clients, but then what we're finding is they just seem to get really stopped between once they get up in the world and how do you get the first 20 fans? It's a weird place.
And are you saying from like a artist that has the fan base from touring and whatever, and it's just kind of migrating them, or they're new artists that are uh trying new things now?
Brand new, no
Brand
touring,
new.
studio only, older, brand new.
Yeah, because it's when you think of your audience, it's like, where do they want to live? I almost wonder if I'd try like a Zoom concert for fans and see if they'd pop on and try to get like a sense of who they are and where they might like to be online. Facebook groups still very active for a certain demographic, and I don't think should be ignored. Um, I think I'd try a Zoom. I think I'd try like if I have all the emails and you can set up a calendar invite, see how many RSVPs you get, and see if the artist can perform and like just be a quick 20-30 minute thing, have a performance and a Q&A, and just see what kind of personalities you get. And you can even then in that setting test out like, hey, like, would you guys be interested in like you from the marketing side if the artist doesn't want to say it themselves? Would you be interested in getting in a WhatsApp so you have all the latest information? I think I test it that way.
Thank you.
Start.
Yeah, Symphony, I heard, is an app that's doing some really cool marketing and ad placements from a very early stage. Really great analytics. Maybe think about collaborations and using other pages or other artists to help pull fans from there. But I think, Ellen hit it on the head with the use of close friends or a broadcast channel. Yeah, and Reven just said the same thing about the broadcast channel. Make people feel special. What do they like? Just trial and error, talking directly to them. I think sometimes artists overlook the value of talking directly to a fan. If someone likes your music, just send them a DM. Hi, thank you so much for your support. What did you love about this release? What kind of special moment can I create for you? Survey your fan base or just people who engage and see what they like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we are almost out of time. So, does anyone else have any questions?
We have some in the chat. Ellen, are you okay for one more question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back up. Or Dayna, if you saw one. Um, let's see. I think you answered most of them.
I think we have.
Yeah, it looks like most of them are answered. So I think we're okay. Unless anyone has one final question, I think we can wrap up. Yeah, okay, Dayna, I think we're good. Ellen, is there anything you want to close out with? Where can people find and connect with you?
Yeah, no, my email is ellen@ejmartist.com. I do marketing consulting for artists, and I can be found on LinkedIn, Ellen J. Mangan on Instagram. My door's always open. I love collaborating and having conversations. I think it's community within us marketers that makes us all better marketers. So I very much love to be in touch.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Please mark the date, Jan 15. Our next topic is exploring gaming and music partnership opportunities for music marketers. Hope that you can join us. A big thank you to Ellen for joining us today. Ellen, I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better. And Carolyn, I'd love to hand over to you. Just talk a little bit about the B.A.K community before we close out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people here on the call are familiar with B.A.K, are already in the playground. But for those of you who aren't, Big Ass Kids is our parent company. We have divisions that support both music artists and music professionals. From the artist side, we have distribution and some really cool artist resources that are very artist friendly, and we'd love to explore with any artist that is looking for a safe and friendly place to release their music. And from the music professional side, we have the B.A.K Play.Ground, which is a community of vetted music professionals, creatives, labels, people looking to hire freelance music professionals who know what they're doing. And again, a very safe and collaborative environment. And if you're looking to connect with people who can help support you in your career, I think the playground is a place to be, but I might be a little biased. But either way, feel free to connect with me, Carolyn at bigasskids.com. I'm gonna help any way I can.
Take care, everybody, and thank you again for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dayna.
Thank you.